Thinking about arriving in Spain tomorrow? Then hold on to these tips because I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know as soon as you set foot there. From what is incredible to what can be a headache if you don't pay attention. Arriving in Spain for the first time is a mix of excitement and butterflies. As soon as you deplane, you realize you're in a country that breathes culture, tradition, and modernity all at once. The first thing that stands out at airports, especially Madrid Barajas or Barcelona El Prat, is their size and busyness. They are huge international hubs, well-signed and organized, but of course full of tourists from all over the world. So, have patience at immigration. It can be quick, but during high season you might face a lazy queue. Speaking of immigration, no need to be scared. It's usually smooth. The agent will ask for your valid passport, the reason for your trip, and if you're a tourist, may request proof of accommodation and a return ticket. Having all this handy helps a lot. Don't try to improvise on the spot. As soon as you leave the airport, you'll notice something that is repeated in almost all major Spanish cities. The public transport works well. Madrid and Barcelona, for example, have extensive subway systems that take you practically anywhere you need to go. If you're the type who likes to explore on foot, you'll love it. Many tourist areas are made for walking. But be aware, walking means really walking, because Spaniards don't seem to mind covering miles in an afternoon. Another point that draws attention is the pace of life. While in many places people are always rushing, in Spain there is a feeling that everything happens at a more relaxed pace. It's not uncommon to see bars full in the middle of the week, entire families having late dinners and crowded cafes during the day. It's that more social lifestyle, where eating and drinking are not just necessities, but events that bring people together. When it comes to language, here's a tip. In large cities, especially the most touristy ones, many people speak enough English to get by. But outside this axis, Spanish is essential. And it won't always be the soap opera Spanish, you know. There are very different accents and even other official languages such as Catalan in Barcelona, Galician in Galicia, and Basque in the Basque Country. So, learning a few basic Spanish words can save situations and, as a bonus, open doors. Simple things like gracias, thank you, por favor, please, and buenos dias, good morning, already show respect and goodwill. Regarding the locals' reception, you'll notice that Spaniards are direct, sometimes even seeming a bit rude to those who aren't used to it. But it's not a lack of manners. It's just their way of speaking without beating around the bush. On the other hand, if you strike up a friendly conversation, they quickly open up and treat you like a longtime friend. And be prepared for the different schedules. Lunch starts late, often after 2 p.m., and dinner can happen only at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. For those coming from places where dinner is much earlier, it might seem strange at first, but you'll soon adapt. The most curious thing is that this change in schedules gives the day a different rhythm. The streets become more lively at night, with bars and restaurants full until the early hours, even on weekdays. These first impressions, combined with the vibrant atmosphere and the contrast between tradition and modernity, create a unique experience in the first few days. You already understand that you are not just in a tourist destination, but in a place where every detail of daily life reflects centuries of history and a very particular way of living. If there's one thing Spain knows how to do, it's surprise you in a positive way. Within the first few days, you'll notice that the country delivers much more than what Instagram photos show. One of the biggest highlights is the vibrant culture, which is manifested on every corner. You might be walking down a narrow street in Seville and suddenly hear someone playing a flamenco guitar from a balcony. Or you could pass through Madrid and find street artists performing what look like real shows. It's a constant feeling that art and music are part of people's daily lives. They aren't just kept in theaters or museums. And since I mentioned museums, this is another strong point. Madrid, for example, houses the Prado Museum, which is considered one of the most important in the world, with works by Velázquez, Goya, and other masters. In Barcelona, the Picasso Museum is a must-visit for anyone who likes modern art. But don't be mistaken into thinking you need to be an art lover to be enchanted. Even those who don't know much end up being impressed by the grandeur of the spaces and the way they preserve history. The gastronomy is another highlight impossible to ignore. The experience of eating in Spain goes far beyond paella, which is already delicious. Tapas are a true national institution. Small portions served to share with friends, which can be anything from a simple piece of bread with tomato and olive oil to more elaborate seafood dishes. And here's a curiosity. In some regions, like Granada, bars still offer free tapas when you order a drink. It's almost as if every glass of wine comes with a gift. Speaking of drinks, Spanish wines are another show in themselves. Regions like Rioja and Ribera del Duero produce award-winning labels, and the best part, at much more affordable prices than in other European countries. If you're on the beer team, you'll also find a wide variety, almost always served very cold and in a relaxed atmosphere. Another positive point is the geographical diversity. Few countries can offer so much in a relatively small territory. Do you want paradisiacal beaches with crystal-clear waters? The Balearic Islands, like Ibiza and Mallorca, are there for that. Do you prefer snowy mountains in winter? The Sierra Nevada near Granada has ski resorts. Do you like historical cities? Toledo and Salamanca seem to have stopped in time. It's that mix of options that pleases any type of traveler. The architecture also impresses in every detail. In Barcelona, the works of Antoni Gaudí, such as the Sagrada Familia and Park Güell, look like they came out of a surrealist dream. In Madrid, the palaces and squares show the grandeur of the Spanish royalty. In smaller towns, medieval buildings create movie-like scenes. And the most interesting thing is to see how the old architecture coexists side by side with modern buildings and super contemporary neighborhoods. Another very positive aspect is the lifestyle of the Spaniards. They highly value social life, good food, and free time. It's not uncommon to see entire families gathered for long Sunday lunches or groups of friends chatting for hours in cafes. This more relaxed way of enjoying life transmits a contagious energy that makes the visitor feel like part of this routine, even if they're just passing through. And if you like parties and events, Spain is practically unbeatable. From the famous La Tomatina festival, where people throw themselves into a tomato fight, to Holy Week in Seville, with impressive religious processions, there's always something happening. The popular festivals are so powerful that even small villages organize celebrations that attract tourists from all over the world. As incredible as Spain is, it's good to keep in mind that there are also some points that can complicate the experience for those who arrive unprepared. Nothing that will ruin the trip, but details that make a difference in daily life. The first is the heat in summer. We're talking about temperatures that easily reach 40 degrees, 104 degrees, in cities like Seville, Cordoba, and even Madrid. Those who aren't used to it can suffer a lot, especially walking in the strong sun amidst stone streets. The curious thing is that Spaniards themselves deal with this by changing their routine. Many people avoid going out during the hottest hours, and that's why in some regions there is still the famous siesta, that mid-afternoon break when most businesses close their doors. For those coming from abroad, it can be frustrating to arrive excited to visit shops or restaurants at 3 p.m. and find everything locked. Another point that requires attention is theft, especially in very touristy cities. Barcelona, for example, has an international reputation for pickpockets. They operate in crowded areas like Las Ramblas, on subways, or at tourist spots like the Sagrada Familia. Madrid also has its risk zones, such as the Puerta del Sol and its surroundings. The point is not to panic, but to be smart. The petty thieves are experts at distraction. While one offers help or strikes up a conversation, another tries to take your bag or phone. Also, it's worth remembering that Spain, being a very touristy country, can get too crowded at certain times of the year. July and August are practically impossible in places like Ibiza or Barcelona, with beaches and attractions packed with people. This impacts not only the experience, but also the prices. Hotels, restaurants, and even museum tickets go up considerably. Those who don't like crowds might find the pace too chaotic. Another detail that can be strange is the matter of timings. Remember that Spaniards eat dinner late? Well, this can be a problem for those used to eating early. Often you go out to look for a restaurant at 7 p.m., hungry, and discover that most haven't even opened yet. The same thing happens with nightclubs, which only really start to fill up after 2 a.m. For tourists who don't get into this rhythm, there can be a strong culture shock. Public transport, while efficient in big cities, is not perfect everywhere. In smaller towns, the subway or bus options can be limited, and the schedules are not always reliable. In addition, long-distance trains like the AVE, the famous Spanish high-speed train, are great, but prices can be high if you don't buy in advance. Another negative point is that despite the reputation of being a welcoming country, Spaniards can sound too direct. For those coming from warmer cultures like the Brazilian one, some interactions may seem cold or even rude. This doesn't mean they are impolite. It's just a different way of communicating. But it can be strange for those who expect easy smiles all the time. And you can't forget the costs in super touristy regions. Barcelona and Madrid, for example, have prices that are shocking compared to other cities in Spain. A simple meal in a restaurant in a tourist area can cost double what you would pay in a less bustling neighborhood. Those who don't do their research end up spending much more than they expected. There is also the issue of bureaucracy in some services, especially for those who plan to stay longer. Processes for renting, opening a bank account, or even buying tickets online sometimes seem complicated and full of rules. For those just passing through, this is less apparent, but it can catch those who expect everything to be practical by surprise. Spain is full of surprises that catch tourists off guard, and some of them are so peculiar that you only really understand them when you're there. One of the first curiosities is the way Spaniards deal with schedules. I've already mentioned that they eat dinner late, but it's even more intense than it seems. It's common for lunch to start around 2 p.m. and last for hours, almost like a social event. After that, many still take that famous siesta. It's not a legend. In smaller towns, you will really find shops, pharmacies, and even banks closed between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. For the tourist who arrives excited to explore, it can be a shock to see everything stopped in the middle of the afternoon. Another curiosity is that despite being a single country, Spain is practically a mosaic of cultures. Each region has its own language, cuisine, and even traditions. In Barcelona, you'll hear much more Catalan than Spanish, and in Bilbao, in the Basque country, Euskera is so present that even the street signs are bilingual. In Galicia, Galician dominates much of daily life. This means that regional identity is highly valued. It's as if, within Spain, there are several mini-countries, each with a unique personality. And if you think parties are just a weekend thing, in Spain the story is different. Spaniards take festivals seriously, and many are completely out of the ordinary. La Tomatina in Buñol is perhaps the most famous. Thousands of people throwing tomatoes at each other in a real red war through the streets. In Pamplona, the famous running of the bulls takes place, where brave or reckless people run side by side with huge animals in narrow streets. For those who prefer something less radical, religious festivals like Holy Week in Seville are of a grandeur that impresses any visitor. The Spaniards' relationship with food also yields curiosities. In some cities like Granada, there is still a tradition of offering free tapas when you order a drink. Imagine ordering a glass of wine and, along with it, receiving a complimentary plate of patatas bravas or a portion of jamón. It's a custom that makes any tourist happy. Another interesting thing is that olive oil is present in practically everything. It's no exaggeration to say that traditional cooking oil almost disappears in many homes because olive oil reigns supreme. Speaking of jamón, it's worth mentioning the national passion for this cured ham. You'll find whole legs of ham hanging in bars, restaurants, and even supermarkets as if they were decorations. And Spaniards take the difference between types seriously. The jamón ibérico de bellota, made from pigs fed with acorns, is considered almost a cultural heritage. Another curious detail is how much they value the act of toasting. When someone raises a glass, it's practically mandatory to look the person you're toasting with in the eyes. There's even a belief that if you don't, it brings bad luck. And they really take this superstition seriously. And of course, you can't talk about curiosities without mentioning the national passion for football. The rivalry between Real Madrid and Barcelona goes far beyond the sport. It's almost a matter of identity, mixing politics, culture, and regional pride. Watching one of these games in a crowded bar is to experience one of the most intense moments of Spanish culture. In Spain, understanding a little about local etiquette and behavior can make all the difference in being well received. You don't have to worry about memorizing complicated rules, but there are some cultural details that show respect and help you fit in faster. The first thing that stands out is how Spaniards greet each other. Among friends and acquaintances, it's common to give 2 kisses on the cheek, 1 on each side, even when it's the first time you've met someone. Men usually greet each other with a handshake or even a hug, depending on the intimacy. But if you're in doubt, go with a handshake, and you can't go wrong. Now, if the person leans in for a kiss, don't be surprised. It's normal and part of the culture. Another interesting thing is that Spaniards are direct in their communication. While in Brazil we tend to beat around the bush to avoid seeming rude, they get straight to the point. This doesn't mean a lack of manners. It's just a more practical way of expressing themselves. So don't take it personally if someone responds in a short or unembellished way. It's cultural. At the table, some rules are important. Dinner or lunch, for example, is usually a long social moment where people eat slowly, talk a lot, and sit for hours. Putting your elbows on the table is not seen as a lack of manners, but talking too loudly can be frowned upon in some environments. When you toast, remember the rule of looking the person in the eyes. And don't be surprised if Spaniards share several dishes in the center of the table. Eating and sharing is part of the experience. Another detail, punctuality. Spaniards are not known for being the most punctual in the world, especially in informal meetings. If the meeting is with friends, you can expect a delay of 10 to 15 minutes without problems. But in professional situations, punctuality is taken more seriously, so it's not a good idea to be late. Regarding conversation topics, it's always good to be careful with politics and regional identity. Calling a Catalan a Spaniard can create an awkward atmosphere, as can joking about regional rivalries. It's best to listen more, show genuine curiosity, and let the person themselves lead these topics. On the other hand, talking about food, football, travel, and even the weather is always a good way to start a conversation. When you visit someone's home, bring a small gift, like wine, sweets, or flowers. It's a simple gesture that shows consideration. Oh, and be prepared for late hours. If you're invited to dinner, it will hardly start before 9 p.m. For those coming from abroad, it might seem strange, but for them, it's totally normal. Another curious point is how they deal with queuing. In some places, especially in bakeries and smaller markets, there isn't that neat line. What happens is, you go in, ask, ¿Quién es el último? Who is the last one? And wait for your turn. This can be confusing at first, but it's the traditional way of organizing service, and you can't fail to mention the expansive way of Spaniards. They talk with gestures, touch your arm during conversations, and maintain a physical proximity greater than what many foreigners are used to. For Brazilians, this may even sound familiar, but it's good to be prepared for this intensity in contact. When we talk about safety in Spain, it's not to create panic. The country is considered safe compared to many other tourist destinations, but like any well-visited place, there are situations that deserve attention. The main one is theft, especially in busy areas. Barcelona, for example, is famous for its pickpockets. They act very quickly on crowded streets like Las Ramblas, on the subway, and even inside tourist attractions. The most common technique is distraction. Someone bumps into you, another asks for information, and in the meantime, they have already taken your phone or wallet without you noticing. Therefore, the first tip is simple. Always keep your belongings in sight and close to your body. Backpacks turn to the front in crowded areas, well-closed purses, and phones out of your back pocket. It seems like an exaggeration, but it's not. They are experts at spotting distracted tourists. If you use a wallet, it's ideal to keep only the necessary things in it: one document, one card, and a little money. The rest can be stored in a safe place at the hotel. Another common situation is the signature or petition scam. People, often young or women, approach you with a paper saying it's a petition to help children, disabled people, or social causes. While you are distracted signing, another accomplice tries to take something from your pockets. The rule is clear. If an unknown person approaches you with papers in their hands at tourist spots, don't stop. It is also important to pay attention in restaurants and bars. Many tourists leave phones or bags on the table, especially in outdoor areas. This is the perfect scenario for quick thefts. Someone passes by pretending to sell something or asking for information, and when you realize it, the phone is gone. The tip here is never to leave valuable objects on the table. On public transport, especially on crowded subways, double your caution. The busiest times, such as morning and late afternoon, are the favorites of pickpockets. It's a good idea to use crossbody bags and locked zippers. There are even small locks for backpacks that can prevent headaches. Another point, be careful with irregular taxi drivers. In big cities, always use official taxis or ride-sharing apps. Some unlicensed drivers may charge abusive prices to tourists who don't know the average fares. If possible, ask beforehand how much the ride should cost to your destination, or confirm that the meter is on. At night, especially in nightclub areas, it's good to maintain the same level of attention. Places like the Gothic Quarter in Barcelona or certain parts of central Madrid are super lively but also concentrate opportunists. It's a good idea to agree to go back to the hotel in a group or use reliable transport instead of walking alone in the early morning on emptier streets. Another important tip is about documents. Never walk around with your original passport in your pocket all the time. Take only a certified or digital copy and leave the original in the hotel safe. This avoids bigger problems in case of theft, and pay attention to persistent street artists. Many are genuinely performing, but some use the performance as a distraction for accomplices to act in the audience. It's fun to watch, but always keep an eye on your things. So, you can already see that Spain is a country full of contrasts, right? It has culture pulsating on every corner, food that wins over even the most demanding people, landscapes that range from paradisiacal beaches to medieval cities, and of course, some challenges that, with the right tips, are much easier to handle. What really matters is to throw yourself into this experience with an open mind, learn from the local customs, and enjoy every detail. Traveling to Spain isn't just about visiting tourist spots, it's about living a different, lighter, and more social lifestyle. So get ready, pack your bags, and go without fear, because Spain is one of those trips you'll never forget.